In this video, I'm going to be providing a product review of Daiya Frozen Pizza. I had a health condition that pushed me into the realm of gluten-free and dairy-free, so I used to often be on the lookout for some of these products. Now, when we end up with these chronic health conditions, we want to be very careful of what we're consuming, and when we do cheat, it's really important to know that we are in fact cheating rather than being misled into thinking that some of these processed foods are actually good for our health while they're causing a whole host of other damages to our health. So as part of this video, I want to provide a deep dive into the ingredient list so that you can have a better understanding of some of these ingredients that are deceptively labeled and are really leading us astray in terms of thinking that they're really good for us. Meanwhile, they have adverse effects on our health. Now, I'm not perfect in terms of avoiding all these foods. I still get very tempted. I love pizzas. I love sometimes consuming some of these processed foods, but I think the important part is recognizing that when we are consuming these foods, they're not really beneficial for our health. They actually have an adverse effect. So if you are going to be consuming it, be mindful that you are it's almost like microdosing on a lot of ingredients that are not conducive to your health. So something you want to be mindful of, especially if you're being deceived by the labeling stating that they are healthy foods and they're good for your health and they're plant-based, and you think to yourself, well, if it's plant-based and this is the trend, then I'm eating healthy foods and I can consume it on a regular basis. If you're going to be consuming these foods on a regular basis, you are microdosing with a lot of these toxicities within these products, and they're probably going to end up making your condition or whatever you're dealing with worse, and then you end up blaming other factors that are not related to these microdosing factors, because these products may give you the false perception that they being managed well. However, over the longer term, they have a very detrimental effect on your health. So with that, let's get right into it. I want to pop up the ingredient list so that we can go through it together, and I can show you some of the things that I generally tend to look out for whenever I'm scrutinizing a food to understand whether they're beneficial for me or not, and somehow of how these products are labeled so deceptively so that they make us think that they're actually healthy, meanwhile they're not. So let's go through it. I'm going to start off with the ingredients that I see first. And so starting off with the starches and flours. All these flours are basically conventional flours. None of them are organic flours. So something to be mindful of, because organic ingredients would generally be free of these pesticides. But because none of these are organic, just be mindful that they are processed versions of these flours, and they could contain pesticides. So although you may not see the pesticide itself, it's not something you can wash off like when it's sprayed on a fruit or something like that. These are basically contained within the flour itself. So you are going to be consuming, whether it's microdosing on some of these pesticides that are within these ingredients. The other ingredient that I want to highlight is these oils. And the reason I have them circled over there is oils, when they are not organic, tend to be an extremely concentrated form of these anti-nutrients or pesticides, because when an oil is extracted, it's like the concentrate of the product. So if it's a vegetable or a plant that is sprayed with pesticides, oftentimes it's going to end up getting into these oils. So when the oils are extracted from these plants, they're going to saturate in those oils. And when you're consuming conventional oils that are GMO oils, just be mindful that these oils are going to contain an elevated level of these pesticides and toxins. So that's the second one that I want to mention. The third item on here that I'm looking at is the cane sugar. So cane sugar is just another creative way of hiding what is processed sugar. It's no different. It's just a creative way to kind of deceive people into thinking that it's a more natural form of sugar. This is not the full sugar. This is just normal sugar that is just labeled cane sugar to make people think that it's the healthier version. It's still processed white sugar. So just be mindful that this is still no different than processed sugar. So let's call a spade when we see it, rather than creating all this deceptive labeling. The next item is yeast. Now you may be wondering, why am I calling out yeast? It's contained in a lot of breads. But if you suffer from a chronic condition, especially with gut issues, yeast can be very harmful or have a detrimental effect on your health. And yes, you may not notice it immediately, but over time when you're constantly consuming these foods, they are going to have a adverse effect, especially if you're someone that's also suffering with a condition like acid reflux or digestion or constipation. Please be mindful before you consume these products, especially if you're consuming it on a regular basis, because then you're going to end up with elevated levels of this yeast in your system. The next item I want to cover is all these gums that are included in this food product. Now, recognize something. These gums are nothing other than filler ingredients. You're going to see a lot of articles online that are going to claim the health benefits for a lot of these gums. And the only reason they're doing this is so that they can promote its consumption and create this perception that they're really good. If you look at our ancestors, a lot of them never went out there and started consuming these gums. So please be mindful whenever you see these gums on products. They are nothing but filler ingredients. They are not there to elevate your health or to be beneficial to your health. They purely from a taste perspective to try and improve the texture of the product rather than to be beneficial for your health. The second item I want to cover is natural flavors, right? Now, natural flavors. Now, you may be wondering, what the hell is natural flavors? It's so deceptive in its very labeling. Because it contains the word natural in front of it, it gives people this perception that, oh, it's natural, it must be good. But from my understanding, natural flavors are generally a way of deceiving the public. These are products that have often been banned or where people have become aware of the adverse side effects or the carcinogenic effects on people's health. So now they're being labeled as natural flavors so that people don't know these products are within the food. So let's think of one of the common items that could be within this natural flavors item, and that is MSG. Now, MSG is known to sort of boost the flavor of a food. However, it causes a lot of adverse health effects. And a number of these food manufacturers are putting MSG in their foods because they result in a lot of these foods becoming addictive. And that is why in the past, a lot of these chip manufacturers and food manufacturers used to place MSG in their foods to try and make these foods more tasty and achieve that bliss point. So they're still using these foods, they're just hiding them in the labeling. So whenever you see natural flavors in a food, alarm bell should be ringing in your mind to say, wait a minute, why are these people using something called natural flavors? Just tell me what it is. Stop hiding the shit in all these deceptive labels that we as a public can't understand what the hell's behind it. Because if you did add something in there, why not just call it what it is? Why do you need to hide it behind something called natural flavors? So that is something that's really important. The other items, the tricalcium phosphate, these lactic acids, all of these, do you even really need these foods? When you make these foods at home, you're not going to need to add all these chemicals. These are just foods to improve the texture of these products. Don't need to have all these chemicals in your food. So something to be mindful of whenever you're reading these labels and you find these foreign items and a number of these chemicals within your food. Just be mindful that you don't really need to have these items in your food. They added to increase the bliss point of these foods or to try and make it more appealing, but it's not something that's critical to the very food itself. Some of them are even preservatives and things which you don't need if you're making it yourself. So as mentioned, these are the main ingredients that I wanted to go through. I'm not even going to go down the Beyond Meat rabbit hole because that's a whole nother issue. If you want to go plant-based, stick to your raw whole foods. If you are consuming processed food, just know that it's processed food. I still get tempted and consume some of these foods. So I'm not saying I'm some sort of saint avoiding all these foods and being so strict. I still get tempted, but I know that when I'm consuming these foods, I'm consuming something which is a processed food, and be mindful that you are basically microdosing. And that is why if you're consuming a lot of these foods, it's still very important to do a lot of detoxing so that we can get a lot of this toxicity out of our body. So there you go, that's a deep dive into the ingredient list. So hopefully something that can shed some light before you go out and reach for one of these products, so at least you know what you're getting yourself into. If you found this video helpful, please drop it down in the comment section below. Please subscribe to my channel. I'm going to be trying it and doing more of these product types reviews to try and help you understand whether these foods are really healthy for you or not. If you have suggestions on foods that you'd like me to review, please drop it down in the comment section below. And with that, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in my next video.